Hi gang, Rob here. It's the evening of 26 September 2016. Got another video for you in my Bark River 2016 Fall Grind-In series. This one is going to be an interview, or actually pieces of two conversations with custom knife maker Jesse Hemphill. Now, Jesse is from Alabama originally. And don't let his demeanor fool you. You know, Jesse might seem like a laid-back Southern boy, bit of a redneck, but he's also an educator, has a couple master's degrees, and he teaches at the high school in Escanaba. So there's a little more to Jesse than meets the eye, and I hope that these two segments of interviews will give you a glimpse into who Jesse really is. He's also a really talented knife designer and knife maker, and a blacksmith who forges his own Damascus steel. I didn't know Jesse before I took this trip to Escanaba, and you know, we sort of met by me calling him by the wrong name. Jesse and another knife maker, Zoe Christ, who have both recently moved or are in the process of moving to Escanaba to make knives in that part of the world. They're about the same age, and they're about the same shape, and they're both custom knife makers, and I didn't know either of them, and I actually called Jesse Zoe in one of the pieces of video that I shot this weekend. So our relationship sort of started by laughing about that, and then we ended up spending a lot of the weekend together. I just adore him. He's a great guy, a great heart for teaching, and makes some pretty cool knives that we will review on the channel in upcoming days. So take a look, guys. You're going to love this. Hey guys, we're taking a little break on Saturday from the Bark River Grind-In. My knife is actually done, and I don't know, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon or so, and ran into a knife maker this weekend that I hadn't met, heard a lot about, Jesse Hemphill, Uncle Jesse's Knives. And you'll be able to tell by his Michigan accent that he's from this area. Right, Jesse?
I am a native of the UP.
The UP of Alabama.
Hardly. I am from the north of Alabama. That's about as far north as I'm from up until the last few months when we moved here to Escanaba. So
you moved here to Escanaba, and is it kind of part of Mike Stewart's grand plan to make Escanaba the center of the knife-making universe?
I think it is, and I was the first one to bite the bullet and say, let's head north.
That's awesome.
And but I had actually lived here a total of 2 months with them last year, lived in their basement, so that's kind of a second. And one time I came in, I had clothes in the closet, and I had just left a toothbrush and a razor, so I felt at home there. But I decided I just love the area, love the people, and was able to come up with a nice house and a shop here, and decided to head north. So I'm loving it here.
That's awesome. So tell us about your how long you've been making knives, and what do you like to make?
Originally, the way I worked my way through college was I apprenticed to an ornamental blacksmith, and so we did stuff like gates, railings, fireplace tools, lighting, door hinges, all that kind of stuff. And like everybody that's into knives, you know, you probably as a little kid, I was a nut about them. So sort of one thing led to another, and sometime about 83, I guess, while I was still in college, we went to some blacksmith rendezvous and get-togethers, and we saw people making Damascus, and of course, you know, we had to go home and do it. And I was bit by the bug, and I've never been able to get over it yet. So, I enjoy it as much or more now than I did back then, because I know more what I'm doing, and you know, you're constantly thinking about new patterns and new ways to do it. So I've been at that, and I guess probably made the first knife 84. So wow. I've been around for a while.
That's 30 years plus.
Yeah. See, and the weird thing is, I was a full-time maker back in from like 88 until 95, something like that, and then kids came along, and the bills, and you need a steady income to get a house and all that. And I kind of dropped out of sight. I went underground and didn't I'd make 3 or 4 a year for, just to give away or whatever. And so there was a big gap there where I didn't do a whole lot. And then a few years ago, I said, it's time, either do it or sell it all and forget about it. And so I decided it was time. I felt like, the time was right for me to do that. A lot of things fell into place, and so here we are.
That's great. So how did your relationship with Mike Stewart of Bark River come about?
Well, I've tried to think. The first thing I can remember is I think I called him. I saw his stuff on Facebook, and I called him with a question about something, and we started talking and hit it off. And then, occasionally I'd get a message from him, "Hey, how are you doing?" And then one day he calls and says, "Hey, I want you to come up and just have a little get together." Me and we're having several of us are going to get together, just some friends, and all of those people now are just my best friends now. We're all, and a lot of us are moving in this area just so we can be together, be our own little family and community here. We've so they've done, and he's done a whole lot for me, just giving advice, helping, because as I moved into doing pure from just one-off custom stuff into trying to go into production, that's the difference between building a Volkswagen and building a pickup. Both the same vehicle, but it's a whole different approach,
Absolutely.
So he's helped immeasurably about helping that, and just moral support, giving me, hey, you can do it. And so I owe them a whole lot of gratitude. That's
a neat story. And doing that all and making money at it at the same time instead of starving.
Yeah.
That's kind of important.
I love doing knives, and if I never made another dime off of them, I would do them. But it's kind of nice to do something you love and to be able to do that. And actually, I'm never going to be rich, and that's okay. But if I can be comfortable and I can put out something that somebody hold it up and say, "Oh my gosh, I love this. I'm so thankful. This is cool." And then, be able to think, somebody that'd be digging through Granddad's stuff and say, "I wonder who made this. I wonder who that guy was." It's a pretty cool idea. You think about that could actually happen.
And before, I want to take a little walk around the shop and look at some of the stuff you've got in process, but tell us about the other job you have up here in Escanaba.
I actually, my bachelor's degree was in industrial arts, and for some reason I moved on from that. After I got out of college, I was doing this full-time for several years, and then I moved back to my home state of Alabama, and I decided to go back to school to get a master's. And at that point I was going to get one in history, and I realized I'd have to coach or do something else or never get a job. And I was working. I ended up doing some work with some special needs kids, and I just loved it, so I went into special ed. Long story short, I come up here, they were looking for somebody for that, and then the superintendent said, "Whoa, I've seen what your undergrad is in. Would you be interested in teaching woodworking and shop?" And I just thought I almost fainted. I was just like, give me the pen, where do I sign? And so now I'm teaching woodworking, and we're actually working toward building a program where we can incorporate forging and knife making, or cutting tools, because you can't have a knife at school. But
so cutting tools.
So, so there's ways to work around stuff. We'll see what happens with that. But I'm really loving that. I love woodworking, but I just went this direction, and so and I'm loving what we're doing with the kids. They seem to like me. I like them. Hey, sometimes you get blessed for no reason.
Yeah.
And I'm being totally truthful there. So I'm really thankful for that. So I'm doing this at night. I come home. Usually I'll sit on the couch, talk to my daughter, sleep for an hour, get up, put my work clothes on, and she and I come out here, and she helps me. And she's just been my right hand on doing this. So I'm real glad to have her up here with me, and we're doing this just pretty much no holds barred as hard as we can go.
That is so awesome. It's this is kind of part of a big picture going on in Escanaba right now. And Mike started telling me about this in June when I came up while my wife and I were on vacation and went to dinner with him and Leslie and Derek and Wendy. Mike Stewart has big ideas for his community.
Yeah, and everything's real family oriented.
Yeah.
Everybody that's moving up here, like, you know, my daughter came up here with me. My best friend, Zoe, that you talked to earlier,
yeah.
him and his family moving up here.
And I called you Zoe by mistake earlier. Yeah. We got custom knife maker Zoe Chris working on a customer's design out of a piece of bar.
In other words, I don't recommend this.
Why is that, Zoe?
Jesse. This guy right here, also my brother, Zoe Chris.
So you are not Zoe Chris. You are Zoe Chris.
I'm
Jesse
real.
Jesse.
They call me Uncle Jesse.
And this is my brother Zoe, and he's
So that's, you know, that's his power hammer. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So his family, and there's some other families that are moving up here too. So, you know, we're all one big happy bunch, I guess.
I love how the high school shop class becomes part of that big picture. Escanaba needs jobs. Mike is bringing knife making to Escanaba, and you're training the next generation.
That's what we're hoping
cutlers.
that when they said that, and I threw the idea out there, a light went off with them, and I'm like, you know, I could really be a feeder for some of there's going to be a lot of industry in this industry, and I could be a feeder to help get these kids jobs. And, you know, when it's all over with, I say I've got 3 jobs as a teacher. One's to keep them safe, and 2, make taxpayers and voters. In other words, they can't pay tax if they don't work, and a voter, I don't care who they vote for, but to be aware of being a person who is cognizant of what's going on around them, you know, and to want to be a part of a community and be aware to have a voice. So
they didn't know when they enrolled in your woodworking class that they're really taking a civics course.
No. And that's you know, and they're going to get economics too, because there's a lot of stuff coming from where I was at and seeing that there's some things, and I have a lot of freedom and leeway to be able to work stuff in to help. And, you know, and if I'm working with them and I say, hey, this is a good kid, this is a good student, look him over, and I don't deliver on it, that makes me look bad. So I've got to keep my end of the bargain too. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with that.
All right. Well, let's take a little walk around the shop and see what's going on, see some of the equipment that you're running. You just walk and talk, and I'll try to keep up.
Okay. You have to understand this is a working shop. It looks the way it looks because we're in here. I know a lot of people have beautiful shops and are tool collectors. I'm not that. If I have a tool, it can be used, or I don't fool with it. Of course, I've got a bandsaw, but it's actually on the table for one of the drill presses. So
that'd be a low-speed metal saw, right?
Pardon me?
That's a low-speed metal saw.
Oh, right? Yeah. Oh, and it's got this, and I have it so that I can use a foot switch on it. That's so awesome. I can bring the stuff up here, turn it on and off with my foot, and it's just super handy. Of course, I've got this, just invaluable for what I do. Little mill, it's just a little Chinese mill, but it works very well.
I don't see the screen and the keyboard. It's not a CNC
no,
mill,
because everything's this and this. So, you know, this is all old school on what I'm doing here. I don't have anything like that yet. Behind it's an old Atlas lathe from probably out of the 40s.
Isn't that a cute little thing?
And I've actually got the original owner's manual for it. And of course I don't use it very much, but it's nice to have when I do need it. That, believe it or not, is my granddaddy's anvil, and that super strong stand is because we didn't bring the stumps whenever we moved up here. And I wanted to get to work, and I got a stool, and I said, well, if it'll hold it. So this is actually one of the smaller ones I've got. I'm not as young as I used to be, so I've got a 250-pound anvil on the back of my truck, and I just don't have what it takes to pull it out.
Yeah, you'll need that back there when the snow flies anyway.
So that's it. You know, of course here, I'm using constantly, you know, with the Damascus, we're putting it all together by using MIG welders or, you know, arc welders, whatever. So I've got a MIG welder, and over here some different furnaces or different forges that I use, and the blower actually is interchangeable on these, and I use them. Actually, I don't want to have the fire in here, so I take them outside, put them on the table, and different ones. I've got 4 different forges, and each one's used for a different purpose. One of them's atmospheric, and I use it for heat treatment.
Right.
Of course, here, and this should be working by next week. I was talking about my buddy. I went down to North Carolina and got this air hammer from him. That'll be using the air compressor to drive it. Over here, I've got a press that I used for the last couple years that I actually went to Lowe's and bought a log splitter new, because I could buy one new as cheap as I could have used one. Went home, took it apart, and started adding on to it, and we just kind of built it as we went and turned it into a pretty good little press. It's actually got removable dies with a hammer, or probably some WD-40. I hadn't removed them in a long time. And back over here is a little rolling mill to use for stretching and flattening the steel out. And it's really been quite valuable. And back there's hammers, hammers and tongs, and all the stuff that you need, you know, for general forging.
Right.
Let's go on over here and I'll show you on the other side. This is a mess right now because we're in the middle of changing the way we're doing some of our buffing. We've been doing some experiments, so the wheels are off of some of them. This is necessity is the mother of invention.
You guys might think this is a drill press laying on its side, but it's not really.
This is actually a low speed buffer because right at the very end, I had 4 knives to do on the last production run, and my low speed buffer locked up. What am I going to do? I don't really want to go buy a new one right today. So what I done, I took a piece of bar, found one of these arbors for it, put the bar in, put it in here, and all at once laid it on the side, and now I have a low speed buffer.
That's great.
And so, you know, necessity's the mother of invention. And so here's the rest of it, flat disc grinder. And these are my 2 grinders. Now these are both the old school. These are like the first grinders that the Bader company put out. Not maybe the first, but they were the 2x72s. And you gotta remember, when I started, there was only Bader, Burr King, and Wilton at that point. You know, those were the only grinders we had access to, unless you built one. And I actually did, when I first started, I actually built my first one. And so, you know, this one I bought, my daughter's 25, so this is probably 27 years old. And this one I just picked up. Guy gave me a heads up on Facebook one day about there being one. He knew I was looking, and I called the guy, and he said, I'm, you know, 10 minutes off the interstate headed toward the Mackinac Bridge. And I said, I'll see you in 2 hours.
That's
so I went
awesome.
by and I grabbed this one. It actually had more accessories to it than my old one did. So
It's kind of nice. You got
Yeah.
one set up with a contact wheel and one with a flat platen, so you're not constantly
And-
swapping.
and I've got one's on a lower speed and one's on a higher speed, so
Gotcha.
I can switch back and forth if I need to. And over here's something I'm not using right now. It's a shop smith, but
Oh my gosh, I haven't seen one of those in ages.
it's so handy with the starting capacitors out. So anyway, got to fix it. But I have like ran buffers because it's got a variable speed. You can put buffers, and I've got discs, so I could put on each side of the head and use it. Also can use it
And
for
they
a
were
lathe.
so well made.
Yeah, and this thing I bought it, it had never been used, and it had been in somebody's basement for years and years, and I bought it, had all the tools, accessories, lathe, chisels.
And you know, there's a lot of them like that. Old rich guys bought them, put them in their basement, thought
Yeah.
they'd use them, and never did.
Never did, and this one didn't even have any sawdust on it. Now,
Man, they were expensive too.
and you know, I think it was $3,000 back then, according to what I gave $400 for it with all this stuff.
That's awesome.
And I used it up till that, and I've just got to get it fixed because it would really be handy to have, you know, to put, you know, run dual flat discs with both of them turning in the same direction. You know, put one on each side of the head. So and I'll get back to it at some point. Right now I don't need it, but when I do need it, I'll suddenly magically find the time to fix it.
You bet.
I haven't done right now. The rest of it, offices back here. This is my office, and this is an extra place. It'll be a photography booth pretty soon, and then we got storage over here, and just miscellaneous shop tools that everybody needs to have piled up in the corner. So that's
basically, if you're a man, you need.
Yep, that's it. This is all the stuff that you got to have that, and you only need it once a year, but when you need it, you need it.
So all you guys take a close look. If you don't have any of this stuff, you need to get it.
And odds are everybody's got it in. I was just lucky enough to find a baker's rack and be able to put it all in one spot instead of hunting for it.
There's what I need a couple of right there. You know, I'm always drilling stuff, trying to hold it on my drill press. Just go out and spend $30 and get a drill press vice rod, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and I've got several of them, so you know, every time I find one at a yard sale or something, if I can, $3 or $4 or whatever, I grab it.
Hey
You never
guys,
know. You can't have too many of them.
look here in the storeroom. I think we got some horns. Huh? Maybe some knife handles. Someday soon.
A lot of horns, and I've even got them hanging up on the light fixtures out here in the middle. I've got several racks.
Oh.
That 6 or 8 racks hanging up here, and then I've got a bunch of elk up there and some fallow deer up on the top shelf. So, and always looking for more. You know, can't have too much.
Well, let's look at some knives that are coming to fruition.
Awesome.
We got a couple sitting here out on the table that I think might be coming home with me. First, we got this trailing point. This is a new production out of your production set of knives, right?
Mm-hmm. And there was originally the first design had 2 pins in it, so this is actually out of the first ones. There were about 90 of these done, and there won't be any more of them with the double pin. So these were, when these are out, they're gone. And this is a trailing point called the High Falls. It's named after a place, a landmark close to where I'm from originally. And this is called the Town Creek. It's a clip point.
Just a beautiful
And
clip
of course,
point.
both of these have the Moran handle. Now let me show you something else. I don't have another example except this one, and this is my personal one. This is the other handle option that we have, and we just finished a very limited. There were only like 45 of these made, and I've got one of them.
Right?
And this is another one of the Moran handles. This was actually one of the trailing points that I modified into a drop point, and for myself personally. And you know, so I'm keeping it. Now, if you say, hey, you know, I would really like to have a drop point, but all he's got is trailing points, we can hook you up. All it takes is calling the place, buy one, tell them, hey, I want it turned into a drop point. I can go pick it up, and in just a little while, it can be shipped to you at no charge, magically turned into a drop point.
And knife ship free carries.
Knife ship free carries them, DLT Trading, and BlueRidgeKnives.com also has them.
And the material of the steel is?
A2.
A2. Jesse, those appear to be convex ground.
Yes, they are. Everything I do is convex ground.
That ain't a bad thing.
No, I've always convexed them, and it turns out this was independent of what everybody else, because I didn't know any better. You know, back when we was first learning how to grind.
Apparently, the other guys didn't know any better.
And so that's what I've always done. And if you look down here, the table is messy, but this is some of my Damascus that I was able to get 6 blades etched, and I've still got to work the tangs down on them. I don't work the tangs down until after they've been heat treated, and I'm getting ready to start fitting the guards and handles, so that way you can tell that they have plenty of beef to them. So a lot of people say, you know, a stick tang is not as strong as a full tang. I'm going to argue. I'm sorry, but I have never had a stick tang knife of mine anyway that failed me. So
if the stick tang knife fails, it's probably not the fault of the stick tang. It's probably the fault of the guy who made it, right?
The only one I've ever seen fail was some of these Chinese survival Rambo knives that had a stick tang. But these, I keep them. They keep them as thick as I can,
Yep.
and they're all, and these are all edge quenched. For right now, I'm still doing it the traditional edge quench way. So it's got the hard edge and the soft spine, and the dead soft ricasso and tang. So
For maximum toughness, right?
Mm-hmm. And I'm, you know, and we've done a heck of a lot of testing on these things to see, you know, how they hold up. You know, I have one, a blade that I don't particularly like, you know, and it takes a lot to break one. If you break one, you were trying to break it. Right. It's not gonna just happen. I also got a little Damascus Tomahawk head, and
oh yeah,
I did like 3 of those, and it's all we done was sticking in etchant, so it's rusty. I just stuck it in to see what the pattern was gonna look like. It's nowhere near finished.
Look at that, guys.
And I've got another one of those to do, and then a sort of the bearded, what they call a bearded axe, sort of the Nordic style. Be getting on that pretty soon.
Just about 2 inches of cutting edge there, and what, maybe 4 inches from the center of the shaft to the cutting edge?
Yeah, probably. I hadn't even measured it. I just
what a sweet little hawk that's gonna be.
The first guy that saw it said, "Just call me when it's done." So
yeah,
I didn't have to wait very long on that.
And you got a little curly maple handle made for that.
Yes, I have also. I've already turned the handle down for it. And with just stuff going on this week, we just weren't quite able to get everything done. Yeah, so, but should be within the next week and a half, we should have all this ready to go.
That's great. Well, Jesse, thanks for the tour, and thanks for the story, man.
I'm certainly glad to have you here, and please know you're welcome to come back anytime. So next time you come up, maybe we can go back through and you can watch a billet of steel. We'll build one up and let you actually go through the process and see how it's all welded and folded and what we do to develop the patterns and just see what we do. There's you know, get to see behind the curtain a little bit.
That would be great.
Awesome.
I suppose we ought to head back over.
All right.
All right, man. Thanks for your time. And,
thank you.
It's been great meeting you.
All right. Take care.